A city, well, maybe more like a zone, off the coast of Honduras. It's called Prospera. And it basically has its own laws, its own legal system.
Right, and it's got this backing from, Silicon Valley types, big investors. It has this really unusual amount of autonomy.
Which is the striking part, especially when you hear that the Honduran government initially gave it the green light.
Yeah, they were supportive at first, but then a new government comes in, and now they're actively trying to shut it down. It's a complete reversal.
It really sets up this conflict, doesn't it, between old ways of governing and these, well, experimental zones.
Absolutely. And people have strong feelings. You hear some say it's like a beacon of freedom, prosperity.
And then others look at it and think, hang on, is this just a new kind of colonialism exploitation, maybe?
It definitely makes you ask, what does progress even look like?
Yeah.
And who actually benefits when you try something so different?
Which is exactly why we're doing this deep dive today. We want to get into the story of Prosper using some firsthand accounts.
We're trying to figure out, is this a glimpse of the future? How societies might work?
Or is it just a really risky experiment, something potentially dangerous?
And our main source for this is a transcript from a Yes Theory YouTube video. They actually went there, spent time inside Prosper.
Right, they documented the whole experience. So, okay, let's unpack this. Where do we start?
Let's start with how they got there. The arrival. The transcript paints a picture of a journey that's, well, not exactly straightforward.
No big signs saying, welcome to Prosper, apparently.
No, just signs for the pristine Bay Resort. So right away, there's this element of mystery. It doesn't exactly announce itself.
Yeah, like they're heading into the unknown almost. They land, it's hot, they're going towards this place they've only read conflicting things about online.
And there's this coincidence, too. They were already thinking about going, and then suddenly they get an invitation.
Which is interesting. But they made a point of saying they declined any sponsorship, right? To keep their view objective.
Exactly. They wanted to see it for themselves without any strings attached. Important detail, I think.
Definitely. So their first actual interaction on the ground is with a local tour guide, Armando.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Armando, who lives right there, works in tourism.
I've never even heard of Prosper.
Right. It just highlights this potential bubble, maybe. A disconnect between this special zone and the local community right next door.
You'd think a tour guide would know, wouldn't you? It says a lot about how separate it might be perceived. Or how little it's integrated, perhaps.
It certainly feeds into that criticism of it being insular. Geographically close, but worlds apart in awareness.
Then they finally get to the entrance, and it's a shared gate, pristine Bay Resort on one side, Prosper on the other.
Yeah, this physical overlap between a fancy resort and this experimental city. It just blurs the lines even more.
They weren't even sure they were in the right place at first. Speaks volumes about how unconventional it is.
And it makes you wonder about the relationship, between the resort, which is probably quite traditional tourism, and Prosper's radical goals. Are they linked somehow?
Good question. So they go deeper, they meet Thomas, he's an early resident, a property manager.
And he's standing in front of this building, which he says is the tallest on the whole island.
And apparently the tallest in Honduras outside of the two main cities, Tegucigalpa and San Pedro Sula.
Right. So that immediately signals ambition. They're building something substantial, making a mark.
And there's a drone dock on the roof.
A drone dock, yeah. It adds that futuristic touch. It's a visual cue for their tech-forward vision.
Then Thomas's girlfriend, Andy, she really lays out the philosophy.
What does she say?
She talks about Prosper potentially changing civilization itself by introducing competition for traditional governments.
Wow. Okay, so that's the core idea then. Governance as a service. Competing with nation states.
Pretty much. Like you choose your governance provider based on what they offer, security, laws, whatever. It's a radical shift in thinking.
It really is. It challenges the whole model we're used to.
The transcript does mention the flip side, though. The perception that, yes, it creates jobs, which is needed.
But also the risk of it just becoming this, playground for the rich. An exclusive enclave.
Yeah, that tension seems baked into it, the potential benefits versus the potential for inequality.
Which is a fair concern, especially in a place like Honduras with existing economic challenges. How do you ensure the benefits are shared?
Well, they do address the exclusivity concern slightly. They learn about an access pass.
Okay, what's that?
The idea is anyone without a criminal record can apparently register online, get this pass, and just walk in.
So physical access isn't necessarily the main barrier.
That's how it's presented, yeah.
Yeah.
Relatively open in that sense.
But I suppose living there, working there, truly participating, that might involve different economic barriers, right? Even if you can walk in.
That's a good point. Physical access versus economic access. Then there's security. It's a huge emphasis.
Understandable, given Honduras has faced significant problems with crime, high homicide rates in some areas.
Exactly. So providing a safe environment is presented as a key service, part of their, quote, customer-focused mindset.
It makes sense. If you're offering governance as a service, safety is probably service number one on the list for many people.
And that ties back to Andy's point, right? People choose to be there because it offers something they value. Security, maybe a better business climate.
Or other opportunities, yeah. The principle is voluntary association. It's framed as a choice, not something imposed.
Okay, let's shift to community engagement. They meet Virginia.
Here's Virginia.
She's from Prospera, a neighboring town, a local Honduran, and she actually works in Prosper, teaching English.
Ah, okay. So her perspective is really important here. Does it counter the disconnected enclave idea?
Well, she talks about life-changing opportunities. Work, yes, but also free education provided by Prosper.
That's significant. It directly challenges the narrative that it only benefits outsiders or the wealthy.
She brings up a point, too, that Prosper supposedly can't legally expand its territory without getting consent from the local communities first.
If that's truly enforced, that's a crucial safeguard against, land grabs or displacement, which you sometimes see with big developments.
And they mention a statistic: over 3,000 jobs created by Prosper and related activities recently.
3,000 jobs. In the Honduran context, that's a pretty big number. It suggests a real economic footprint.
Definitely has an impact, regardless of the controversies. You can't ignore that kind of job creation.
It could have ripple effects, supporting families, maybe sparking other local businesses.
They also bump into a subscriber to their YouTube channel, believe it or not. A Honduran guy who's been working in Prosper for 5 years.
Oh, wow. What was his take?
His focus, he said, was on making sure things align with Honduran culture, ensuring fair wages compared to the rest of the country.
That's interesting. It suggests at least some internal effort towards, cultural sensitivity and fair practice, not just purely abstract ideals.
Right, it adds a layer of nuance. But then, things take a turn towards the unexpected.
How so?
First, they find a Bitcoin ATM just sitting there.
Okay, a Bitcoin ATM signals a certain tech-friendly, crypto-embracing vibe. Not entirely surprising, maybe, given the backers.
True, but then they hit the makerspace and meet Quinn.
Quinn?
Yeah, works for companies involved in implanted cybernetics.
Implanted, okay, like biohacking.
Exactly. He casually mentions he has 4 implants himself.
4? What kind?
One links to his website, apparently. Another is a magnet in his finger so he can, sense electromagnetic fields.
Wow. Okay, so we're definitely moving into some cutting-edge, maybe even transhumanist territory here.
No kidding. And it doesn't stop there. They learn about research into brain uploading.
Brain uploading, seriously? Like consciousness into a computer?
Well, not exactly sci-fi escape, apparently. The researcher explained it's more about creating detailed digital models of neurons.
For what purpose?
To understand neurological conditions better, develop treatments for things like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's.
Ah, okay. So a medical research angle. That makes more sense.
And a key reason for doing it there, in Prosper, escaping the usual regulatory hurdles, the bureaucracy.
Right, the freedom to innovate argument. Faster research, fewer rules, though they did mention maintaining safety protocols.
Still, it's a recurring theme, isn't it? Pushing boundaries outside traditional systems. The potential benefits are huge, but you also wonder about the oversight.
Absolutely. Then they get offered, what was it, a legal hallucination.
Yeah, through brain stimulation. Some kind of device.
Okay. That definitely pushing boundaries of normal experience. And the fact it's legal there just underscores the different rules they operate under.
Then they meet Juliet, and her work is maybe even more surprising.
Go on.
She's using menstrual blood as a source for stem cells.
Menstrual blood for stem cells.
Apparently, it's an incredibly abundant source, and she's using these stem cells for 3D bioprinting. The goal is printing organs.
Printing organs. Wow, that's potentially revolutionary for medicine.
Absolutely. And she talks about destigmatizing menstrual blood, too, seeing it as this valuable resource.
It's a fascinating example of innovation that might only happen in a place willing to challenge conventions, both scientific and social.
Her company, Infinita, wants to be the world's biggest stem cell supplier. They offer women payment or preservation options.
So creating a whole market around it.
And for Juliet, it's personal. She has an incurable spine injury. She sees Prosper as a place where research like hers can move much faster.
That personal drive is powerful. It really humanizes the push for this kind of potentially disruptive science.
The innovation vibe just keeps going. They meet Manuel, moves from San Francisco.
And what's his project?
He's organizing an electric knife tournament.
An electric knife tournament? You mean like fighting?
In a Thunderdome-style coliseum they built, apparently. He literally compares it to Mad Max.
Okay, that is quite something. It really runs the gamut from advanced medical tech to, well, electric knife fights.
He sees Prosper as unique, offering the legal freedom for stuff like this. He contrasts it with the politics and corruption he sees in Honduras.
So for him, it's about freedom to experiment, even in unconventional ways.
And he has this grand vision, Prosper becoming the next Singapore or Hong Kong for the Americas. A hub for jobs, a model for other governments.
That's the big ambition, isn't it? Not just an enclave, but a transformative force, a demonstration project.
Then the focus shifts back to the tech side. They visit an implantation lab.
Back to the cybernetics. They actually see an implant happen.
Yes, they watch someone get a chip implanted. Describe it as quite small. The process seems relatively simple.
And the person getting it was excited.
Very enthusiastic. But the hosts watching, you get the sense they felt, well, maybe a bit weirded out, like many of us might, right?
It makes the abstract concept very concrete. Seeing it happen raises questions, too.
Like what?
Well, the video mentioned future subscription services for implants. Who owns the tech inside your body? Ethical questions start popping up.
Definitely food for thought. Okay, so to balance this high-tech world, they reconnect with Sahi.
The local tour guide from the beginning.
Yeah, and remarkably, he still doesn't really know what Prosper is, despite it being right there.
Still, wow. That contrast is stark.
He's just passionate about his own work, wants to start his own tour business, needs about $1,500, he says.
His situation really grounds the narrative, doesn't it? Shows the everyday economic reality just outside Prosper's gates.
Then they meet Horridge, who's described as the mayor of Prosper.
The mayor. Okay, what's his official title, though? Is he elected?
He's technically the manager of the ZEDE, the Zone for Employment and Economic Development. It's an administrative role within the framework.
Gotcha. And his perspective.
He echoes that idea of free market competition for governance,
right,
forcing traditional governments to up their game, basically.
The competition argument again. Serve your citizens better, or they'll choose an alternative.
He also gives a statistic. 75% of Prosper's residents, about 700 people total at that point, are Honduran.
75% Honduran. That pushes back against the foreign enclave idea quite strongly.
Right. And he argues the foreign money coming in mostly benefits Hondurans anyway through jobs, investment.
It's a complex picture. You have Honduran residents, jobs being created, but still questions about wealth distribution and integration.
And Sahi, meanwhile, still has no clue about the Yes Theory YouTube channel, which sets up a nice moment later.
Okay. Foreshadowing.
Horridge also clarifies something important. He says Prosper isn't just a private company ruling over land.
What is it then?
It's a Honduran legal framework, the ZED law, that allows this autonomy. It operates within Honduras law, just a special part of it.
That distinction is key. It's not totally independent, legally speaking.
Right.
It exists because Honduran law allowed it to. At least initially.
They also touch on corruption in Honduras, which is a well-known issue. Prosper positions itself as an alternative, cleaner system.
A major selling point, likely. The promise of avoiding bureaucracy and corruption is attractive for business and residents. But maintaining that is the challenge.
And then bam, they get news that really highlights the friction.
What happened?
The local municipality from outside Prosper had just shut down one of their main buildings, the Johnson Building, unannounced.
Shut it down. On what grounds?
Allegedly for unpaid taxes, but Horshai insists it was done without due process, no proper legal basis, just shut down.
Wow, that's direct confrontation. Shows the tension with the established government isn't just talk, it's leading to real actions.
It really underscores how precarious things might be, relying on a legal framework that the current national government now opposes.
Exactly, the ground seems shaky.
But Horshai, despite all this, sounds determined. He emphasizes the chance Prosper offers for freedom, for civil rights that might be hard to find elsewhere in Honduras.
You can hear the conviction. They really believe they're building something important, despite the pushback.
And then, the surprise moment.
Yes, for Sahi.
For Sahi, the Yes Theory guys give him $2,000. More than the $1,500 he said he needed to start his tourism business.
That's fantastic. And Prosper residents chipped in too, apparently.
Yeah, they promised more support. It's a genuinely heartwarming part of the story, a direct positive impact.
It shows a different side, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Beyond the high tech and politics, just people helping people.
So summing up their experience, the Yes Theory team sees Prosper as this hub for bold ideas. Maybe risky ideas, but definitely bold.
And they frame it against the backdrop of Honduras's real problems, corruption, instability, which creates this understandable desire for something different.
But the big question remains, is Prosper the right way, the best way to achieve that change?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? There are strong arguments both ways. Potential for progress, potential for problems.
The story is definitely not over. It's something you have to keep watching, probably with an open mind.
For sure, it's an ongoing experiment.
Oh, and just as a final, slightly bizarre note as they were leaving, that electric knife fighting tournament was apparently about to start.
You couldn't make it up. It really captures the unique, maybe even strange mix of things happening there.
Totally. Okay, so to wrap this up, here's something for you, the listener, to think about.
We spend a lot of time just accepting the way things are, especially when it comes to governance. The nation-state model feels like the only way.
But is it? Consider the fundamental assumptions we make. Could experiments like Prosper, even with all the controversy, teach us something?
Could they spark needed conversations about what governance could look like in the future? About balancing freedom, innovation, and community?
Maybe they offer lessons, even if they aren't the perfect solution themselves. It's definitely a question worth mulling over. What does the future of organizing ourselves actually look like?